They didn't want to take my class because I've always had the reputation of being hard or mean, and it's not that. I push my students. I've had really good growth, and that's because I hold them accountable and I make them do the work. And so the more time that they are using to do the work and learn it, then when they move on and I tell them how hard it is, they'll come back and be like, "Oh, that was easy." No, that's because I've prepared you so you have the tools to be able to handle what's coming your way.
Welcome to HBCU4U Podcast. My name is Galen Turner. 20 years, urban schools, real impact. That is today's guest in 3 lines. And I'll be honest with you, this one is personal. Today's guest is not just a remarkable educator and leader, she's my sister-in-law. So I can tell you firsthand, everything you're about to hear is a real deal. Charitta Bryant is a Huston-Tillotson University HBCU graduate with a master's in educational administration. And she has spent over 2 decades proving that the right educator in the right room can change the entire trajectory for a young person's life. From ELA teacher to AVID coordinator to instructional coach to assistant principal, Charitta has done the work at every level. She helped teachers produce 3 consecutive years of student growth. She has helped campuses climb from D ratings to B ratings. She got 100% of her 8th grade students of color to apply for high school advancement programs. And when the school day ends, she is still working. As a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and former Delta Academy Committee chair, she has spent mentoring young women and helping them find their confidence, their voice, and their path forward. This is what HBCU excellence looks like in action. Please welcome my sister-in-law, Charitta Bryant. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I
How
think
are
this
you?
is such an awesome podcast,
Well, thank
shining
you.
a light on our HBCU. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about my little school on the east side of Austin.
Well, we're not just going to talk about the school, but we're going to talk about the school and you and the impact it's had on you and how you're translating that into your professional and personal life right now. All right. So
Cool.
let's jump right into it.
Mhm.
As we mentioned, actually, you're illustrating it right now. You're a proud Huston-Tillotson University graduate, a legendary HBCU in Austin, Texas. What drew you to HT, and how did the experience shape who you are today?
So funny thing is, HT came to me. I thought I was actually going to Houston to come to find out that it was in Austin. But we had the infamous Coach Dubra who called me and he sold me the campus, talking about all the features, wall to wall carpet, phones in every room, the whole nine. And so I was like, "So what do you need from me?" Because I had committed to go to another school.
Okay.
My dream, backstory, I wanted to be a Spelman woman and got accepted, but Spelman wasn't giving any money. And coming from a single parent household, it's like, okay, it's out of state, it's expensive.
Right.
We can't do that because I refused to work and put myself through school. I wanted to have a true college experience. Howard was another consideration, but again, same things. So when I got the call to go to HT, it was like, oh yeah, sure, because it was a full ride. Everything was covered, books, fees. What I skipped past was room and board, so that wasn't covered the first year. I had to prove my GPA, and then the following year, everything would be covered. So I got a call out the blues. They said they had my information, my test scores, my transcript, the whole nine. And so when you're given the opportunity to go to school for free,
Right.
It's like, okay, yeah. And then he told me it was in, because I think during that call, I thought it was in Houston. And he was like, no, we're in Austin. And I was just like, okay, that's far enough away from home where I can have some independence to try and figure out if I could really do this, but close enough if something happened, my mom could get to me within a short amount of time. So that's
Fantastic.
kind of how I ended up at HT.
Okay.
So, but being there, my whole thing in choosing colleges, I've had a varied background of the types of schools I'd gone to. When we moved to Fort Worth, just put it out there, racism was a thing. So I remember in eighth grade, I was always a Tandy scholar. So the school that I was going to, I went to the office and I said, "Hey, y'all said my name," and the woman in the front was just sure that they hadn't called my name, but she would just double check. And of course, I was one of the Tandy scholars, like, oh, yeah, it is you. So when I was choosing colleges, I wanted to go where I didn't have to fight for, being seen
Right.
and, trying to fit in or, just the nuances that you have to have, with the code switching. So I wanted to go to HBCU. And then that
Fantastic.
way, yeah.
Great segue. Beyond being seen and not having a code switch, well, for young people who are on the fence about HBCUs, what would you tell them about HT? What HT gave you that you wouldn't have anywhere else? You mentioned a couple of things about HBCUs in general. Were there any other aspects?
So for me, I was, for me and anyone who went there, you were going to be challenged, but it had nothing to do with being harder on you because you were African American or Black or from a low socioeconomic background. It was, there is history here, there is legacy here, and you are here to contribute as well as take from. So it's one of those where there are systems in place to make sure that you do thrive. It's easy to kind of see your tribes. It was kind of one of those. I came from a huge high school, so you could see someone your freshman year and not see them again until your junior or senior year. So in a small campus, it's one, I'm there with people from different states, out of the country, just differences, but we all had a commonality of, trying to see what adulthood was like with different job opportunities, confidence, just being, because you go having an idea of who you are. So you're at the core of your being, you should stay true to that. And it's nurtured at HBCUs, especially because my college is small. So it's easier to say, no, I don't do that. And then just the way I was raised, you're a Bryant, you don't do that. So there are things, we got into trouble. It was good trouble. I don't have a record or anything. But, just we were close to 6th Street. So I know I didn't have a car. Most of us did not have a car. So we were in walking distance, just with the different parties. Of course, the academic life, it was, yeah,
Right, right.
fulfilling. So confidence, I would say, with schools, especially with my school that's smaller, it helps to boost your confidence, sharpen your voice, or give you a voice. Because when we didn't like things, we got together as a student body. We don't like this, and we would present that to our staff, and they listened to us.
It's very applicable. Almost what happened to, it's kind of similar to what happened at South Carolina State University, right? When they initially invited, was it the governor or lieutenant governor to be guest
Yes,
speaker, and the students spoke up about that, spoke up and spoke out. Is that what you're referring to as far as letting your voice be
yeah,
heard?
yes. Ours wasn't that bad, and I actually have a sore. I mean, ours were, you know, back when I went to school. It was very stringent. Some of the curfews, and it's just like, come on, y'all gotta loosen up some. Like, we're not tearing things up, but how are you going to tell me, like, how we operate? So just with different things like that. But it was a challenge with even with services that we wanted at our campus, because one of my sorors, like Jesse Jackson, rest his soul, he went to UT. And it's
Oh,
like a group of us had gone over there. And so one of my sorors was like, okay, well, you're over here at UT. Are you coming over to HT, the only Black school here in Austin? And so he came over. We got to take a picture with him, kind of talk to him after. That's when he was running for president. So, yeah.
wow.
Shout out to Karen Ortiz.
So you had a presidential candidate on your campus. That's amazing.
But I met Louis Gossett Jr., who I would tell people that was my dad, because we had taken a picture and everybody was like, "Oh, y'all look alike." I was like, "Yeah, that's my dad." You know, claim somebody a bit. No, but we had several people who would come through and visit our campus, because at that time, back in the early 90s, late 80s, we weren't getting the funds from the state that other campuses. So that's kind of one of the things when students go to HBCUs, they have to realize. Because again, when I first arrived at HT, being here in the DFW Metroplex, UTA was there very often, TCU had been on their campus, and the Texas Wesleyan before it underwent its change. Those are the campuses that I thought I was going to go into a campus that looked like that. Even with UNT, well, it's now North Texas, but even with UNT, I thought it was going to look like that, or TCC even. And so when I got to HT, I was like, this is it? And so I said, "Oh no, I'll be here for a semester." And the lady that was doing the tour, she said, "Well, you do know that when you get your financial award, it's awarded by the year. So you can leave at the end of the semester, but your money doesn't transfer with you. So that money just would have been lost." And so she was like, "So it's awarded through the year." And so I'm like, "Okay, well, I'll do the first year. I can do that. And then I'll just leave afterwards." But luckily, I had such a good time and made so many good friends, of which, and acquaintances that, 30 years later, we still keep in contact and, make sure, y'all coming to homecoming, things like that. So, yeah.
Other than your friends, were there any other motivating factors to compel you to stay?
It was just a fit. So again, back to when I said, how they were trying to keep us in a box. There is a guy from Chicago. There was several people from Chicago. So we had, the way our dorm was, we had a courtyard. So, it's Friday afternoon and we're still on the campus because again, we were not of means. He had this huge speaker. So he pulled it into the courtyard. I mean, the music would be going, we'd be playing water balloon fights. We would barbecue. Now they really don't advise you cooking in dorms, but like we cooked. We were entrepreneurs in the making. Like, people were doing hair, fixing, selling food plates, all the things just to have a little chump change. And it was one of those aspects where we pooled all our money and resources together so everyone could have.
Yes. So it sounds
So
like y'all had a sense of camaraderie and a sense of
yeah,
community as well. Is that on the money? Community and
yes,
camaraderie?
yes,
Fantastic.
most definitely.
Now let me roll it back a little bit. You mentioned the coach that recruited you. Can you talk a little bit more about that coach and what he coached specifically
Okay,
and
Coach Duper. Now I had a academic scholarship, so I played no sports that would not have been in HT's best interests. I have some skill, but not a collegiate skill level. He was the coach, I think, for basketball. He may have even been coach for volleyball. But he served, in small schools, especially then, in small schools, the employees wore many different hats. So I guess he was the recruiter, but he talks a good game. To me, when he was describing the campus, again, I pictured what I saw here. I had never been to an HBCU other than Bishop College way back in the day because my uncle went there, but I couldn't tell you what it looked like, which is, now the new Paul Quinn campus. And when I finally went over there, I was just like, this kind of brings back some memories. So, but yeah, he sold it. I think, I want to say he may be retired by now, but he's still very active. We go to homecoming, or if you go down, you see Coach Duper. I've actually seen him he's on social media. So yeah, he's very beloved.
Fantastic. Good to hear. Now, moving on to your profession, you spent 20 years in urban schools. What first drew you to education? And when
Uh,
did you realize it was more than just a career for you?
I'm still trying to figure that one out. So I
Hey,
actually,
be honest about it. Be transparent.
I actually have a business degree, and when I was at HT again, I had all these lofty goals. When I went, I was a double major, double minor. Who does that?
Talk
My
about them. Talk about them. All your majors. Talk about them.
Well, I didn't finish with it. I didn't stay the course because, when you go to small schools, well, back in my day, it was a class you would think, they're offered only in the spring or only in the fall. So you think, the next year is going to come up. And so my senior year, a couple of courses that I needed were not going to come up until the fall. And I'm like, okay, this is not following the pattern. So I switched all of that and I changed my minor. I stuck with business because I was a business and English major. My minor was, what was it? Something with language. I don't know. It was something. But I ended up with doing business administration and marketing. Marketing was not a part of my plan. But because of all the courses that I had taken and what was being offered, because my motto was 4 years in and out. So I switched to marketing, and that's all I had was marketing classes all day. So it made it kind of easier to learn it on the fly.
Right.
I had taken some of the marketing classes because within business, but yeah, neither here nor there. But yeah, as far as education, while I was in school, we partnered with an elementary school that was across the street called Blackshear. So I was one of the tutors. And then through some other programs that we had, Miss Stevenson, she was I think, our career person. So she was always telling students about different jobs or different volunteer opportunities. And she so happened to also be a soror. So that was one. I worked with that program for about 2 years, I think. I just went to help out, but it then became we need you to do this. And then it was kind of like, okay, I'm recruiting people to go be on my team, if you will, to go into the schools. But it was fun. And so then once I also pledged, I was kind of our point of contact in going into the different schools. Like we go like for Halloween or, the different holidays to take kids treats and things of that nature. So once I graduated and I relocated to the DFW area, I worked in the city manager's office. And still, I've always been connected to school or schools. So I was our Vitalink coordinator. I was our point person for career day or career fairs, all those things. So I've always been attached to the education realm. And I had quite a few friends who were education majors, and they would always invite me and try and recruit me to education. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. It don't make any money. So I went the business route. And so was doing well, relocated up here. I had was employed with DFW Airport, the airport board. Most people think I was with an airline. I'm like, no, I worked for the actual airport. So that to me became, I would say, it was my cash cow. They recruited me over because I was, at the city doing okay. When I went to DFW Airport, I'm just like, y'all paying me what? and this is all y'all want me to do? Like, that was my cash cow. So I volunteer and do different things. 9/11 happened, changed my trajectory. So then I asked a question about education, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I was the only one, I did alternative certification. I was the only one in our program that got a scholarship. And so then I got, we were interviewed. They were kind of trying to, I guess, see if we would be a good fit for different areas. I went into my meeting because it didn't seem like an interview, if you will. So the person that was a part of my panel, her name was Bertie Avant. She was just like, whatever you do, take your personality with you. Cause, I'm just thinking I'm talking and we're just, they're getting a feel for me. I didn't realize it was a real like interview because it was very personable. So from there, I got a middle school position. I only wanted to work at two schools, and that was the two schools I had attended while I was in Fort Worth. And I was one class short from qualifying for high school. And they was like, well, if you go back to college, take this English class, then you could go teach at high school. Who want to do that? Not me. So I'm like, middle school is fine because I always wanted the older kids. I got a position with a rival middle school from the middle school I attended because I'm not from Fort Worth, but I did go to Fort Worth school. So it worked out. I was there for a really long time, and it just worked throughout, being a teacher. I've been a lead teacher. The principals would put me over stuff or make me the, like the team lead or on SBDM, which is site based decision making committee. Like, it's just different things. It's like, oh, I want you to do this. And it just kind of went from there. Because I originally said, oh, I'm going to do this for a couple of years and then I'm going to go back into corporate. And here we still are.
So, what drove you to keep going down that path, your educational path as a teacher?
So, as a parent, one, I enjoyed the challenge of the kids. Like, having been when I first got into education, I was like, oh my gosh, these students, because my first year I taught sixth and seventh grade, but my seventh graders, things that I thought they should know, they did not know. And it was just like, oh wow. So then that was 20 years ago. And then looking at students now, it's like, it's a vast difference in need. Like, they didn't know, but were willing to try, and their parents were supportive. So now they don't know their parents. Some parents aren't as involved, and kids are just being moved along. But what kept me in is the challenge of it and seeing the impact. I used to always joke I was going to be the first teacher to be a millionaire from the classroom just by teaching. But just the opportunities, I didn't go into teaching thinking, okay, well, the next thing I want to do is move up. No, I was just going to teach and then get out. But over time, me voicing things that I saw or improving different things, it just kind of naturally progressed. And I've drug my feet because I'm like, oh no, I'm not ready to do that. Even when I got my master's for educational leadership. So after graduation, a couple of months later, my house burns up. So I was not looking to do anybody's job because I was displaced. So I'm like, let me get my house situated and then moved back in. Then my son was in middle school. So that's a whole different thing, having to just keep him on the right path or, whichever. That just took a lot of time as a single parent. So eventually, that helped with moving me into different roles. And then I think when I finally moved up into admin, one of my former principals was like, it's about time because you've been ready. But I just didn't trust myself because I didn't just want the position for the sake of this is my position. I wanted to be able to make an impact. Like, I could look back and say, oh, I'm still being respected by students and staff. They know that I really do care and I'm trying to push them forward, not just, well, because I am an administrator, this is what you have to do what I said. No, that's not how
we're going to talk about your measurable impact, but let's think back. If you can think back, what was that first milestone as it pertained to a class or a specific student that encouraged you to keep going? Because you mentioned you seeing that impact in your classroom. What was, can you think of, not necessarily the first one, or one that you can think of that was like, hey, I'm making a real difference. I'm gonna stick with this, because you already mentioned that you were considering going back to the corporate world. What was
Yeah.
that first couple of, if you could share?
That is really kind of easy. I have a few students who, along the way, it's several, but like my first year of teaching, I had students who were willing, they wanted to improve, they just didn't have people to really take that time with them. And so that was the biggest thing. I've always been the one, whatever I ask of my students, I do it as well. Like my sister was in corporate, so your wife. So I would make her come up and listen to them read to her. And so, of course, when I would come home and tell them, the things that would be going on in my class, they would just laugh. They thought it was funny. But then I would make them come up and participate, like meet the teacher night. They had to bring their parents. So my mom had to come. So, and it was just things like that. So they connected with me that way. But I know for sure my second year of teaching, Dominique Blanks was a student who his mother had several children. And he was one of those, like, because I would always tell them, I'm like, it's either me or you, and it's never going to be me, meaning that I am not going to give up on them. So
Right.
then I'm like, so y'all just trust me, and that'll make your year a lot better. So the last day of school, this little boy gave me, and I've run into him since. He gave me such pushback on everything. The last day of school, he was one of the first ones I dismissed, but he did not get up out of his seat. And I'm just like, you're dismissed. You can go. Like, I am so done. I'm over with this year, right? And so then he stayed till everyone left. And I'm like, boy, why are you still sitting here? And he came up to me and he was just like, you right. You never did give up on me. I'm like, you did all that trying to see if I was going to give up on you? I say, I told you I was not. So he gave me a hug, and I'm just like, a lot of the kids, again, I'm in low socioeconomic Title I schools with all the, social ills. So that let me know that if I said something, I needed to stand behind it.
Right.
I even have another one, Taisha Haynes, and I used to love running into her because she was my first year teaching. She had told me that I better shut up talking to her. She was going to bust me in my mouth. And she said it just like that. Oh, and I was just like, oh, really? That's what we doing? So I had called her mom on the spot. Her mom was like, you going to do what? So she apologized, and she got a little vacation, but she apologized. And so every time I would see her, I would bring that up, and she'd be like, Miss Bryant, I was young. I didn't know what I was. I say, hey, that's what you told me. But it's just one of those where I love seeing them as young adults, and then, reminding them of their missteps. And then I had one when I was at Wedgwood. She had told me, she was like, I was just so immature then. I was like, oh, you think? But yeah, it's those, and it's hundreds of others. I have one, Raylan Carter. That was my last group of students I had from being in the classroom. He had come into my room. This was after COVID, with a hybrid learning. He would always tell his parents that I'm failing him. I'm like, I'm not allowed to just fail a kid. So he was like, I'm doing the work. And so we spent probably about 2 hours. I showed them how, if they were to go into Google Classroom, you open an assignment, it's going to change the color, but that doesn't mean he turned it in. I'm like, if he turned in an assignment, you can click on it. So once I gave them the game on what to look for specifically, oh, it changed because he was listening to his friends. They didn't want to take my class because I've always had the reputation of being hard or mean, and it's not that. I push my students. I've had really good growth, and that's because I hold them accountable, and I make them do the work. And so the more time that they are using to do the work and learn it. Then when they move on, when I tell them how hard it is, they'll come back and be like, oh, that was easy. No, that's because I've prepared you so you have the tools to be able to handle what's coming your way. So I still have students who still contact me. Like when I was teaching them, no, you can't follow me on social media. You cannot have my telephone number. No, this is a clear line. Now, once you graduate and you're doing, then if you find me on social media, then I will let you be my friend or what have you. So I have a couple of those. I have one even with Nija. She's now on the East Coast. She just had her baby. He's a month old. So, like, she texts me, just talk with different stuff. So it's the connections that you make because you get to interact with them and see them through as they go from, because I taught middle school, from middle school to high school and then young adult status.
Wonderful. Okay, you built an AVID program at Wedgwood Middle School from 2 class sections into a full day program. What does
Yes.
AVID mean to students in the underserved communities, and why does it matter so much?
Okay, so AVID is one of those where it's advancement via individual determination. That's what it stands for. But it gives your C students, or who are with hard work capable of being a good college student, because some people think that college is just for the smart kids. You can outwork a intelligent person because they may be like, oh, this is easy, but they just do it and it's done. However, if you're willing to put in the extra work and study and fine tune your skills and what you're good at, and be able to talk about it, you can be right there with them. So Avid gives them the tools on how to study, how to critically think, how to speak up for themselves and be comfortable in different situations. So we had one class for seventh grade, one class for eighth grade. And so the teacher who had it previously, she had Avid, and then she was also teaching math. And I was like, at this point, I'm like 15 or so years in. And I'm like, when you have multiple preps, it's taxing. And I didn't want to do that. So we were open, the principal was open to expanding AVID all day, but they did not have the interest for it. So I recruited, and I went to at the time, it was the sixth grade center, got the kids interested with AVID, told them what we were looking for, what the criteria was, because they have to take at least one pre-AP class to be able to handle that rigor. Because when they get to high school, it's the same thing. You'll have to take the honors courses or an AP course to make sure that you have the skill set when you go to college. So with my students, after and when it came time for spring, I made them become the recruiters. I stepped back. I trained them. Like when we would have Avid night, I did the welcome. But as far as greeting them, going, telling their parents about their portfolios and what's happening in the class, that's on them. They do the work, so they should be the ones to be able to speak about it. They had to create commercials that the kids would share, because I recorded them. So then I would send a video to the sixth grade center, like, hey, show this to your students. And I did it the same way because we had video announcements. So I would give a video announcement, upload for them to be able to play that to get our seventh graders interested as well. So it's not just me talking about it, it's the students who are in the program. And so with that, I had an expectation for their behavior as well. A lot of my coworkers would say, they would commend me on Avid being, they could tell the difference in the kids because it really did seem like an Avid program. Not to take anything from the teacher previously. I mean, it's one class, they did more of the fun stuff. And I mean, you just got one class period. So I understood the rationale behind it. But here with an all-day program, we went from not having tutors to come in to, I had tutors that came in from, they were either high school juniors or seniors. And then I had a college graduate who came in, or a college student who came in and worked with them. Because each week we had, it's called tutorials, where they would take the work that they got wrong and they would have to talk through the process, how they missed it, where they went wrong, and what they know to do better. Because AVID gives like a set of questions that they have to work through. So now it makes sure that they don't make that same mistake. And it also helps them, it cements their learning. So, yeah.
Wow. It sounds like you really set the young people up for success. If you can think back, you mentioned them having to create commercials. What was the most memorable commercial that you can think of that really impressed you? Because it sounds like you equipped them with the tools to put everything together. So, what was the most memorable one that you can think of?
So I didn't give them any parameters, like, other than it has to be a video, whether they talk, act out, whatever, skit, whatever it is, how much time it had to be. I was the videographer, but I had a group of boys who they really impressed me. And so they had one, and I wasn't even thinking I could have keyed that up for you to see. But they came up with a rap, what AVID was. And so then they had torn up some paper. And so their tagline was AVID, dropping knowledge. So then they had the paper like confetti that was going down. And then they, of course, dropped their fake microphones. So it's like drop the mic. So, and it was like really good. So that was kind of the best one. So it was a group of boys. They worked really hard on it.
That's beautiful. It sounds like you instilled a lot of confidence in not only those boys but all the avid students, and prepared them for success beyond that program and on to their high school and whatnot. Speaking of high school, you
Yes.
increase eighth grade students of color applying to high school programs to 100%. How did you get
Yes.
those students to believe in themselves enough to even apply?
As a classroom teacher, my motto was, or my mindset is, you will succeed. And in my room, you meet the expectation or you exceed it, period. There is no fall short. You meet the expectation or you exceed it. So with Fourth ISD at the time, they had the special interest programs, which, the name has changed over the years, but now they're gold seal. So it's one of those where, to keep students from thinking that, oh, I don't like school is just not for me, you're probably not in the right program. Because while you're in high school, middle school, even, that's the time to, venture into seeing what you're interested in. And it does not cost you any money. Everyone had to apply for a program that they were interested in. And the way I packaged it to my students is, don't wait until your senior year for that to be the first time that you apply for something and then you not get in and you don't know what to do with yourself. Or you get in, but you don't know what the next steps are. So this is a way to make sure that if you see a program that you're interested in, you apply for it. And I did the same thing when I was in sixth grade, because it had an essay component. So that essay was a part of, their grade. They, in the same vein, they applied. Whether you got in or not, or whether you went to the school or not, was totally up to you and your family. But everyone had to apply, and I looked, was the overseer, making sure that they did meet the requirements for their program. And some of them did. I know I had one student, John, and it's been a while. I cannot think of his last name, but he became, for our tab school, when he first went, he was on all their marketing stuff. So I'm just like, oh, it's so cool because it's like that was my student who was like, I'm not sure, but I really like it. It's like now you're over there and you are excelling. Every time I look up, you're in a picture of something that they're promoting their campus. So yeah, that's
Wonderful.
awesome.
Can you elaborate on a few other the programs, like specific, so the audience will know what type of programs you had the students applying to?
The Gold Seal programs is one that's internal for with ISD. As a part of AVID, every month the students had to apply for scholarships as well. And it was the smaller ones. There is a scholarship clearinghouse, if you will. It's a website. You just go on there and you apply for different ones. There locally, I've had them apply. Whataburger does different things, especially the Whatamom contest, and they had another one. And I know one year my students took first place and third place, but because it was so many students that had applied, because I'm an ELA teacher, so reading and writing, that's the fundamental. So, oh, y'all are going to write. One, you should be able to write about your mom who's sacrificing a lot to make sure that you're doing, what have you. So that was one, a tangible, because when you get to middle school, in elementary they do the cutesy things for moms, dads, grandparents, the whole nine. Middle school, it's all about the grades. So I'm like, no, you still should be able to express in writing how you feel about your mom. So they had given all of my students coupons for a free meal, so of course they like that. So it's the tangible where they can see the connection with, oh, I'm writing in class, which could be a scholarship, which could also be a free meal, or free admission somewhere. I'm trying to think some other things that we've done. While in middle school, one of the problems that we had was with girls getting along, just the girl drama. So I created a Friendship Friday. And so it was invitation only. I would select certain girls, but everyone had to bring a friend. And I would intentionally make sure that, like best friends, they each had an invitation. So you were not the others plus one. So we'd bring in. And so that would be lunchtime. We would discuss things that were going on. We saw a dramatic decrease in the drama. At the time, I was also a at-home consultant with the Body Shop at Home. So then some of my gifts that I would get from my orders and stuff, I would package them up and give them to the girls, and they love that. The smell good lotions and soaps and things of that nature. And then of course the boys were like, "You're always doing stuff for the girls." I'm like, "Hello, look, I'm a girl." So I started doing a fellas Friday, and I brought in two of my colleagues, and I was like, hey, okay, this is the rationale. And so it started, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to bag back, and then y'all can take it, because then that way y'all can discuss male topics or,
Right.
different. It ended up being me. So, but it worked because I became the trusted teacher whenever things happen. Kids that were not my students were coming to me to tell me about different problems they were having with other students, or there was a cutting was a thing, so someone had brought their friend who had been cutting, so I talked with them and took them to the counselor, because that's one of those where it's like, okay, that's above my expertise, you're harming yourself, so you need a professional to be able to talk you through that. So it was, you become a trusted confidant for them, and then they have a safe place to be able to really, do be their authentic self, because if they're not in the right headspace, there's no way they're going to be able to, well, they can thrive, but it's limited. So getting them to know that they're safe, and that the adults really care about them, the person, not just, okay, I need your grades here, I need your test scores here. Like, no, I see you and I want you to do well because you're capable of it. It just makes for a better educational experience.
Wonderful. And I want to give you your flowers now. You've done such an amazing job in the classroom setting. You're one of the top tier teachers at that point in the Fort Worth ISD. So I want to applaud you for the effort and the achievements that you had with those students. You not only had an impact in the classroom, but you had impact outside of the classroom as well, mentoring and educating young people. And at one point, you were a Delta Academy committee chair. You spent years mentoring young women. What does intentional mentorship look like for teenage girls who are still figuring out who they are?
I want to say it's the fiber of who I am. I grew up in a small town where back when community really meant something. And it's not community because everyone is of means. It's, everyone just looked out for each other. You are so and so's kid, or you are a kid. I see you doing something, and they would speak up. So for me, it's because with Delta Academy, of course, my sorority is geared toward African Americans. However, it is open to other students joining in because we've actually had non Black students there. But for me, I really haven't had someone to look at me and say, hey, I noticed this, let me help you along the way. So that's kind of at the point where I notice things and I try and be that for other girls. Because as you know, like I used to keep my nieces during the summer, and you'd always be like, how much you gonna charge me? I'm like, I'm not gonna charge you anything because there's family. However, I do need you to pay for their activities. But
Right.
I always made a way to make sure that they were exposed to different things, and it didn't cost you that much. The same way, like once I left the classroom, did you say no? You did not make that
I'm
face.
just kidding. You're right.
When I became an instructional coach, I have a mentee now. I've had been with him since he was in kindergarten. He's now getting ready to go into fourth grade. Feel like a little proud mama. But it's just I notice things and I want to be the person that stands in the gap. And so that's even with Delta Academy. I had worked on the committee for years. And so they were looking for someone to be a chair. And of course, I was not the one that says, hey, I'll do it. I was like, I'll help because, again, just with teaching, being a parent, all the other commitments and other stuff that I was involved in, I'm like, it'd be easy for me to help out. I'll do whatever I can to make the committee great. But they was just like, it's going to be you. And I'm like, say what now? But it was regular. I mean, my co-chair was really good. Like we were able, that true yin and yang. I'd have all these ideas. Ronika is a graphic designer, artiste. Like I was like, oh, can you design this? Can you do? And I'm like, I'm thinking this. She was like, yeah, sounds good. She was like, hey, I was thinking this, and we just make it work. So, and the kids, the girls enjoyed it, like because it's a Saturday. You just never know who's going to come. But we typically had 15 to 20 girls come on a regular, consistent basis. So for me, being intentional is one, just having the heart to pour in to children and give them some real life tools so that they become more confident in themselves. That's it. Just giving the time and the attention. That's the intentionality about it. My mom
Wonderful.
has always been my role model. So I just look at, when I grew up, it was always my mom. So, wanting to make her proud, wanting to emulate her or different things along that line. So that's been my go-to person, the whole Barbara Ann effect. So, and my mom is the one, she's, very giving. I remember one time she gave away our furniture to one of her coworkers who didn't have furniture. And it's like, well, what are we going to sit on? So it's things like that. or she's very giving, always helping people. So, and that just comes, from what I've seen with my family, and and an innate sense to want to help and make the world around me better.
Wonderful. As a teacher and a mentor, not only in the teaching capacity, but in the community work you were doing with Delta Academy, you see young women face a lot of challenges, right? What do you see those biggest challenges are, and how did Delta Academy and how does Delta Academy help address those challenges?
I would like to think that our biggest thing is letting them know the potential. There really is no ceiling because there is always someone who is capable to break through. So it's giving them the exposure and opportunity to trust in themselves, to reach out to others, to build their own communities, to make things better, but also in making it better for yourself, reach back and help someone else along because there's strength in numbers. So that's kind of one of the biggest things, that to give them voice and opportunity. Um, yeah, because I mean, we have some very strong deltas where it's like you are taking up space. So as you take up that space, let them know why you're here
With
and what
that
you're.
being said, that's perfect. Great segue. So, with that being said, young people and young women may not necessarily have strong role models at home, right?
Mhm.
What do you want them to know about what's possible for their future? You touched on it a little bit in the previous question, but can you elaborate on that?
If they don't have it within their house, there are people that you can look at and emulate, because you never know how someone arrived at their position. So I also work for Tarrant County Juvenile Services. And so, even in that position, I was talking with a young lady yesterday with her circumstances. You have the ability to stop and say or think, what is it that I want for my life, and what will that look like? In today's time, there's so much on TV. There's so many people around you where you can just take a little bit of different things to create a vision for yourself. And I'm not saying that's easy, because if your home life, if all you see are, things that aren't necessarily the most positive, there's still an opportunity for you to say, I like this, but I don't like this portion, so I'm going to do things differently. And I say that because that's something that I've done. I look at different things that people do because it's so true. If you don't see it, you don't know you can be it. So or you don't even know that it's out there. So you also have to expand your perspective as to, do some work yourself. Okay, maybe no one in your family has ever graduated from high school. Be the first. Like, what will they do? Just take steps, because someone is also around them watching them. So, reach out, visualize what it is, make steps to do it, ask for the help, and then do the work.
Fantastic, fantastic. You just mentioned working with at risk kids and working with kids who um, may be overlooked or underestimated. Besides doing the work and looking just for aspiration and other avenues, would there be any other advice you would share with kids who may be sitting in the back of class? What else would you like them to hear right now, just to make sure they're feeling seen and heard? Is there any other advice you would give them?
Well, most definitely, they're not invisible. Someone does see them, and we all make mistakes, and we are not our mistakes. You can come back from that, but integrity and character is so very key. So, with that, if you give your word that you are going to do something, do it. And if by chance you don't live up to your word, own the choices that you make. That would be key. I'm trying to think. In doing the work, their future self, their future best self is going to need them. So they'll be able to look back and, think of what could have been, but, just go with what you have. And, the old saying, when you know better, you do better. So don't operate from a deficit mindset. Think of what would be, an optimal situation and then work toward that, knowing that they're going to stumble along the way, but just keep failing forward, falling forward, because progress will definitely pay off.
That's a wonderful message. That's a wonderful. That's just wonderful. Thank you so much. And in conclusion, you already left a powerful message. As someone who went from the classroom, as someone who went from the classroom all the way to the front office, are there any other parting messages you want to give the young people, especially young Black women, about the power of education, persistence, and purpose?
Well, education is not just about degrees. It's not. You get educated on a daily basis, but use the knowledge that you do have, one, to elevate yourself, but those around you, not just your close circle of friends. Like, what is the impact that you can make in the world that is positive? Because we all need each other, and if you can help propel someone else forward, do that with the knowledge that you have. So that would be about all,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Thank you so much, sis. I appreciate you. I already touched on this a little bit, but I just want to reiterate you are awesome sauce. You're doing an amazing job. I know you may not, get those accolades that you may deserve or may, deservedly should have, right? But I want you to know we see you. You're doing an amazing job. You've done some measurable impact, not only in the classroom, but outside the classroom as well. And I just want to applaud you for all the great work and let you know that we see you and you're doing just so wonderfully well. So thank you. I appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me. This was amazing. I think you dropped some amazing gold nuggets in there, and I hope people really, take some insight on what you shared today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And again, I appreciate this platform shedding light on the brilliance that comes out of HBCUs. Because in today's time, they do try and diminish, the impact that HBCUs have. Of course, those that get the top billing because you hear about all the time. But there are some other smaller schools like, my beloved Huston-Tillotson that's doing some great things out here and have produced some wonderful people. So, but yeah, thank you. And for everyone that's in education, it's a hard job these days, but we do it for the kids. We want to see them excel because, again, these are going to be the young men and young women that are leading our country at some point and taking care of us. So we want to give them all the tools possible so that they can go forth and do the right thing and right the world.
Great parting words. Again, thank you. And this podcast has come to an end. Thank you so much, Charitta.
You're welcome. Bye bye.
Bye.